Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, great. So thanks. I'm Bill DeGuffroy. I'm a transportation planner with McMahon Associates. I currently live in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, but I grew up right outside of Pittsburgh, so I'm a little bit familiar with the area and sort of the needs of communities in Western PA. So tonight I'm going to give a brief overview of the Forest Hills Active Transportation Plan project. I'll talk about some of the preliminary work that's already been done, some opportunities for public input, and what sort of the next steps in our process is. The purpose of our presentation is just to be informational to the Borough Council and to any members of the public that are listening in. And we're not requesting any action at this time. And there we go. So you might be thinking, what is active transportation? Don't worry, you're not alone. It's a relatively new concept for a lot of people, the term active transportation, but it's something that you're all familiar with on some level. In short, active transportation is modes of travel other than personal automobiles. That is biking, walking, using public transit, or any other mode that's powered by people. In Forest Hills, the active transportation plan will look for opportunities to improve safety and encourage more people to choose these modes, but only for trips that would be of appropriate lengths. Funding for this project is provided by a grant from the PA WalkWorks program. So the active transportation plan is for everyone, even if you drive your car everywhere. Once you park it and get out, you're a pedestrian. The plan will identify recommendations that make the place that you live safer to move about. So if you make it safer for people that walk and bike, you inherently make it safer for people that are driving too. There's a concept in transportation planning where if streets are designed to be safe for the oldest and youngest users, they'll be safe for everyone in between. And that's sort of the hope of this active transportation plan. We won't be able to solve all of the issues that might be brought up during the active transportation plan process, but we will identify key improvements that will serve as a catalyst for the borough to build off of. So there's a variety of reasons to plan for active transportation in your community. This plan was envisioned as an early implementation item for the borough's climate action plan, and certainly if there's less people driving cars, there's fewer emissions released into the atmosphere. However, there's other benefits to planning for active transportation. Safety is a key factor to consider. Everyone wants to feel safe as they walk, bike, or drive around the community. And improving safety for the most vulnerable user types, that's people that are walking or biking or using transit, generally improves safety for all of the transportation network users. Getting people out of their cars increases the likelihood of them spending money at local businesses, bolstering the local economy and making it an attractive place to visit. Active transportation is an opportunity for people to live a more healthy and active lifestyle by giving them those opportunities to get out of their car, or to walk around in their community, or to bike. And finally, there are people who live, work, or visit your community who don't have access to a car. And creating a complete active transportation network ensures that everyone has the opportunity to move safely and freely about your community. So based on some preliminary input that we've received from the public and working with the steering committee, we have a draft vision for transportation in Forest Hills. Just want to stress that this is draft, so we're still refining this, but the vision will guide the development of the active transportation plan but it's really meant to live beyond the plan and become sort of a guide for Forest Hills. Being a historic borough and sort of a trolley suburb of Pittsburgh, Forest Hills already has a fairly robust active transportation network. Many of the streets have sidewalks. Ardmore Boulevard is served by the Port Authority buses, and there's a community shuttle, and there's even some public stairs. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement. Based on public and steering committee input that we've received so far, we're already starting to identify some locations that the project team will need to investigate further to identify appropriate recommendations that would improve the walkability and improve biking and transit access. Currently, we're gathering public input via an online interactive map. A link to the map can be found on the Forest Hills website under the latest news on the homepage. Using the interactive map, you're able to drop a pin on the map and provide a comment about a specific location. This will help the project team to refine the locations that need further evaluation. As I just mentioned, we're currently in the information gathering stage, but coming up soon, the project team will be doing a field visit to experience the identified issues firsthand, which with input from the steering committee will enable us to identify improvements and strategies to improve opportunities for people who walk, bike, or use transit in Forest Hills. This project will be complete and the final plan will be presented to the Borough Council by the end of September, which is a requirement of the grant funding from the WalkWorks program. So once again, thank you for allowing Dave and I to come to the meeting tonight and talk to you about the Forest Hills Active Transportation Plan. At this time, Dave and I are both available to answer any questions that you have. That's all I have otherwise.
Do we have any questions from my colleagues about what's going on? Okay, I would encourage you to put your pins on the map. All of you have a lot of opportunity to walk around in the town and know what's going on, and it's really easy to use. I even figured it out, so you can just go in there and put a little comment with a little pin at a location that you might have particular concern about. We've already had quite a few from the public, but we're encouraging people to continue with that process until the next steering committee meeting. When is that next meeting, Bill?
Give me one moment. I had my calendar closed so that I wouldn't get any pop-ups while I was sharing my screen.
While you're looking, Bill, I just want to note that the stakeholders committee is well represented by borough citizens. We also have 2 representatives from PennDOT, the Port Authority, Allegheny County. So it's a very robust committee and group. So we're looking forward to working with everybody and developing a strong plan that can be a plan, but also something that is executable and can get some things accomplished from the plan.
And the next steering committee meeting is on April 8th.
Okay, and will we be doing the field review before that or after that?
Dave and I will coordinate with you. I'm trying to find a time when I can come out so that we can all do the field view. So
yeah. If any of the council members are interested in joining us, I'll definitely let you know when that is, so you can join us in the street.
Definitely.
Bill, you're muted.
So
yeah. No, Bill. Nice.
tried that one. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, am I back?
Yes,
Yep.
Okay, may I suggest that if anybody does have any questions, that if they could forward them to Ms. DeMarco, and then she could forward them to the group. Okay,
you to do that.
Definitely.
okay. And I thank you for doing the presentation.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Right.
For having us. Yep.
Okay, thanks again. All right, so moving on, President's report, I don't have much to say, other than it's been a difficult year. We've gotten through it. Some people have had tougher times than others, but I'm hoping that we're going to come out of this a little bit better off. I don't exactly know how to express it because of all the different things that people have encountered. But we are going to continue to follow our protocols. And then we should be opening. I've gotten a lot of questions from residents about reopening the borough. If it is done, it will be done in a safe manner. It will be in conjunction with the mayor, the manager, the chief, etc. And again, all protocols will be followed until we all get the clear, the all clear sign. And that includes, by the way, Keith Morris. So all I would ask everybody is to bear with it. Keep wearing the mask, stay safe until we get through this episode. So that being said, I have to state that there will be an executive session on personnel issues scheduled after the meeting. That takes us to the mayor's report. Mayor Porco?
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening to everyone. My report will be brief, just a couple of quick items to cover. So on Tuesday, March 2nd, earlier this month, we, as a community, were fortunate enough to celebrate one of our own residents' 100th birthday, Julia Parsons. She is quite has quite a storied history. She operated as a code breaker during World War II. Pretty interesting and storied background, and essentially was a local Pittsburgh native who graduated from CMU and then parlayed her experience and her knowledge of the German language to go to work as a commissioned officer in the Navy, and worked on the I think it was called the Enigma machine, which basically cracked code from German intelligence. And so we honored her with a parade in the borough that was organized by a veterans breakfast group that she regularly participates in and mentors young folks, young women in the military. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to, number one, thank the Forest Hills Police Department and Chief Williams for kind of organizing the parade route. I wanted to thank the Forest Hills Fire Department, Woodland Hills, EMS, and the Department of Public Works, all of whom participated in the parade and offered their vehicles and kind of made sure that it was run in an organized and organized fashion. So I know that she was just absolutely pleased to see the parade come by her house, and she actually sent some thank you cards to the borough. So it was nice to recognize one of our own, especially with such an impressive and storied history here in the borough. Secondly, I wanted to announce that we are opening parks here in the borough and fields. And we've also released our fields for sports here in the community. So soccer will be starting back up at the main park. I think that will be very nice to see. I worked closely with the Woodland Hills Youth Soccer Association and in consultation with Keith Morris, who is our emergency services coordinator here in the borough and a subject matter expert on COVID-related matters. And we came up with a game plan and protocol, if you will, for coaches and players and parents to follow to ensure that kids can get back to sports-related activities, but do so in a safe and a safe manner. So I'm happy to announce that we are opening up the parks and playground equipment. We still ask that people who are at the parks, please try to practice social distancing as best you can, wear a mask, and it'll be nice to see kids playing in the park and participating in activity. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk about a cleanup day, like a spring cleaning day, if you will. It's scheduled for April the 24th, I believe, and that is in conjunction with the celebration of Earth Day. That's a Saturday. And if you go to the Forest Hills website, there'll be a place for you to sign up and also kind of volunteer where you want to particularly work. So there's last year, I'm sorry, 2 years ago when I think it was when we last did it, we had people volunteer to take, trash in various parks throughout the borough. Some worked alongside the Ardmore Boulevard collecting trash there, and it's always a pretty popular event. So we're doing the same again this year to kind of red up the borough and kind of get ready for a little spring cleaning. So looking forward to that as always. And with that, that concludes my report. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tax collectors report. Ms. Sullivan isn't present. Chief of Police, Chief Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a few things to mention. As I was driving through the borough these last week or two, with this weather the way it is, this early spring we have, I noticed there were a lot of children out on bicycles, scooters, and such. And I just want to remind the parents to please make sure your children have helmets on. They need that protection when they're out there. If they would fall off, I mean, you don't want to take that chance. I mean, there is actually a law that says they should have them on, and that's up to age 14. But actually, everybody should really have a helmet on when they're riding a bike or a scooter, just for their own safety. You just never know when you're going to hit a bump and fly off, and we don't want to have any tragedies. We had one several years ago, and we don't really want to see another one of those. Secondly, I'd like to remind the drivers out there that the children really aren't paying attention when they're out on the sidewalks and on their yards. So we need to spend a little extra time paying attention to what they're doing. And if you see, let's say, a child or even an adult walking on the sidewalk, you need to keep an eye on them in case there's a sudden incident where they slide to the curb and maybe slip off. And at least if you see them, you'll know to take action and move over. And again, we just like safety and no tragedies in our lives here. It's always very traumatic when we have these things, and it's difficult for actually all the residents of the borough when they hear about these terrible things that happen sometimes. So a little extra caution on everybody's part is just a great help, and safety is always the right answer. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chief. And if I may add 3 words, please slow down. I know I catch myself doing the same thing. I have to remind myself, slow down. Thank you again, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Solicitor's report, Mr. Corbel.
Nothing to report this evening, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Wilkinsburg Penn Joint Water Authority, Ms. Braz has given us 2 water breaks, one off Marwood and a 6-inch line on Berlin, and both have been repaired. Next, we have other committee reports, starting with Ms. DeMarco. Would you like to report on any of those items?
The Connect group has been working on a regional climate action plan, just recently joined with action by the Allegheny County Council to form a steering committee. So we will be having the mayor of Pittsburgh, as well as the 35 communities surrounding Pittsburgh, working together on the same platform that we used in our community. So ours is kind of a template for the other 35 communities in town, which is really exciting. The Allegheny County Boroughs Association, I believe, is going to be holding their meeting in Allegheny League of Municipalities is going to be holding their meeting in June 17th through 20th. And I believe Mr. Morris has distributed information about that if anyone is going to attend. I may attend one day. I'm not sure I'm going to stay over, but depending on who's speaking when, I will attend at least one day. Our banner community certification was renewed, and so we really need to keep up with these kinds of things. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marco. Mr. Lawrence, anything?
No, nothing to report, sir.
Okay, and Mr. Thielacker?
No, no report.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to public comment, agenda and non-agenda items. All persons wishing to address items based on the explanation below will be heard at this time. Use the raise hand icon on the bottom of the Zoom screen to request to speak following announcement of start of the public comment period. This period focuses on both agenda and non-agenda items. At this time, citizens may address council on any issue appearing on today's agenda or any other issue you may wish to bring before council. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Forest Hills will be permitted to address council. This is the only public comment period for this meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. And please spell your name for the record. Speakers are reminded that council uses these comment periods as opportunities to gather information and not to respond directly to concerns raised. Information gathered will not be discussed at the business meeting, but instead will be referred to the council president, by the council president, to the appropriate committees for review and discussion at the next committee meeting. Do we have anyone who would like to speak that's on the list of registrants?
I see no hands raised, Mr.
Okay,
President.
thank you, Mr. Morris. That being the case, let's get right into the committee reports then. Operations and policies and policies.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the minutes from the February 24, 2021 council meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Okay. There is a note, the agenda from February 24th meeting showed motions with approvals for the January council meeting minutes and the February council special meeting minutes. Okay, we have a voice vote on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, I move to approve ordinance number, and I'm afraid I don't have the number in front of me. You may have it. Amending the borough's code of ordinances regarding excavating, fill, and grading.
That is number 1091.
Thank you. The ordinance title reads as follows: an ordinance of the Borough of Forest Hills, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 9 of the Forest Hills Borough Code of Ordinances, grading and excavating, as amended to regulate the placing of fill within the borough, to repeal all prior inconsistent ordinances, and to establish the ordinance effective date.
Okay. So do we have a motion and a second here? We have a second on this?
No second yet.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, questions, comments? Okay, none being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule, Ms. DeMarco,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
My report is available to read there, but we will note that the manager noted that we were again named one of Allegheny County's banner communities as established by the Allegheny League of Municipalities. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Okay. Finance Committee, Ms. DeMarco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a motion to approve the payment of bills for the month of February in the following amounts. From the general fund budget, $105,440.40. From the corrective action budget, $4,567.27. For the fire protection fee, $2,506.71. And for the Borough Building for phone system repair, $364.50. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Belay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments concerning the motion? None being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Belay. Bill, I think you're muted again. Well, I see you said yes. Ms. DeMarco,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
Thank you. I have a motion to respond to Mock and Hop's notice of change in the actuarial valuation reports for pensions with the following request: that we would like to see an actuarial study of the recommended assumptions to know the impact of the recommended changes on the funded status of the plan and the estimated minimum municipal obligation before making a decision, and understand there would be a charge of $600 for that study. I have spoken to them and they can complete that study by May for us.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on that motion? None being, roll call vote, please, Mr.
Mr. Belay,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger, Mr. Erbaldinger. I'm not hearing
Yes.
anything.
I said
Okay.
yes, I think.
No, you were muted.
I
Mr.
should-
Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
Thank you. I would like to move to authorize the borough manager to extend payment deadlines for borough fees, not including any taxes, without penalty through April 30th of 2021.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments on this motion? None being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Belay,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, Mr. Erbaldinger must be a long ways away here. He has to yell in.
No, I tried to unmute and somehow it didn't work. I don't know.
I'm
Now
just,
it works.
I'm just teasing, Mr. Erbaldinger.
I have just two comments. I wanted to note that we have
It's some Japanese technology.
we have a $1,766.15 credit on our Duquesne Light electric bill for the Borough Building. And this month of just past of March, we have already begun making more power than we used again. So that is net even after paying 4 months out of the credit from the end of last summer. So I am going to be inquiring about whether we can allocate some of our surplus to some of our higher cost electric operations in town on a regular basis, given that we're running about $2,000 credit on average a year in excess of what we use for the building. So I will be pursuing that if anyone has an interest. We are in a good cash flow position for this time of year. And the full budget booklet is on the website now and will be available shortly. It is at the printer. Thank you, Mr. Morris, for that. The other notes are things for you to read, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marco. Borough property, Mr. Thielacker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to authorize the borough manager to apply to Duquesne Light under their LED replacement program to replace a minimum of 10 continuous streetlights along Fillmore Road, beginning at the intersection with Ardmore Boulevard.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? I would just like to state that if anybody notices the change in the lighting system with our streetlights and these smaller bulbs, so to speak, that you'll see up on Greensburg Pike and other areas, that it is a cost savings factor, and we're working with the light company in order to get this reduction, basically, because of the smaller amount of electricity used. That being said, any questions or other comments? Okay, none being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
I move to award the contract for electrical upgrades at the pool lodge to the low bidder, which was Westmoreland Electrical Services for a cost of $24,800, as recommended by the
Second.
engineer.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion? Okay, none being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
Just a couple things in my general report. We're still investigating what we're going to do at the Cook Park courts down there with installing a pickleball court and what else we're going to do with that. We'll be getting that sorted out in the next couple of months. The recreation board's done a lot of work researching that, kind of giving us advice on which way we should go. I think that's about all I have, actually. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thielacker. Planning and zoning.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry, Bob, I'm just making sure here.
That's all right.
I'm going through all these pages. I've got all kinds of papers here I'm trying to manipulate. So planning and zoning, Mr. Blay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. Move to endorse the proposal of Action Housing to mount a sculpture designed and constructed by Operational Valor Arts at their property on the corner of Ardmore and Braddock, provided it meets all borough zoning and code requirements.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? I would just like to say it was presented to us at a committee meeting, and I believe it is a beautiful sculpture and will fit right in there at that corner. That being said, voice vote. We did get a second on that. Voice vote. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay,
And
the ayes
under
have
my,
it. Motion
under my,
passes.
am I ready? Okay. Under my general report, Mr. Branzel discussed with us citations and violations handled earlier this year, and we talked about, and there were some snow removal and trash situations. Also, the tree fell at Bryant, which is now removed by Crusher Tree people, so that's gone. And they didn't do any harm to anyone, so we're okay there. Also, we discussed a sidewalk inspection program that we have sometime this year. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Belay. Public Works Committee, Mr. Gorel.
Move to authorize the foreman to replace truck number 72, a four-wheel drive pickup, including snowplow, under the funding in the 2021 capital improvements plan at an estimated cost of $54,000 under a 5-year lease purchase agreement and under the CoStarz program with sale of the old truck via municipal bid.
And
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments on this purchase? Or this motion, I should say. None being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
Move to authorize the foreman to purchase a four-wheel drive John Deere riding tractor currently in the 2021 capital improvements plan via the CoStarz program at an approximate price of $27,882 with sale of the old tractor via municipal bid.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions and or comments? None being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
Move to approve resolution number 1221, reauthorizing the president of council to sign agreements with PennDOT regarding the upcoming culvert and related work along Ardmore Boulevard. I do want to note that this was already voted on, but because PennDOT has secured alternate funding, federal funding for the project, they have asked council to update the resolution. The old resolution number was 1215 that was approved last November.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions and or comments? Okay, none being, roll call vote, please. Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger, Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
Under my general report, I do have a few things to touch on. We are a little delayed with the MS4 detention pond due to the DEP permit that we were waiting for before we could advertise for bid. 2021 paving will be opened were opened on March 4th.
Actually, those were
and-
open today.
Oh, they were open today?
Yeah. We'll have a
March
recommendation.
24th. Sorry, yes. So yeah, they were open today by the engineer. And do you have anything to say about that, Dave?
The low bid was, I believe, $314,000 for the base bid, but we'll have a full report. I haven't checked the math on the bids and reviewed them yet or tabulated them, but I'll have a full report for the committee meeting at the beginning of April.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. And the Three Rivers wet weather that everyone can read, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gorel. Public safety, Mr. Erbaldinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one motion, and since I'm driving, I would like Mr. Thielacker to read the motion for me if he's willing to do so. Mr. Thielacker, can you do that?
Tom, can you read the motion, please?
Yep, no problem.
Go ahead.
Move to approve the proposal from Glick Fire Equipment for the purchase of a new Pierce Aero XT 105-foot heavy-duty ladder truck. Will replace the 2007 Pierce Dash 105-foot heavy-duty ladder truck with the following conditions. That's accept the bid price of $1,265,552. Accept the leasing prepayment discount of $46,200. Accept the trade-in of the 2007 ladder truck at $300,000, which will come off the bid price, making the total contract bid price $919,352. I accept a payment of 10% cash down the amount of $91,935, bringing the financed amount to $827,417, and accept the interest rate of 2.89% from Tax Exempt Leasing Corporation, making a total annual payment over 15 years of $68,759.61, with the first payment due in 2022.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions and or
I
comments?
would like to make a comment. First of all, I would like to thank Tom Thielacker and the team at the fire department for doing all the research. I know they spent lots of hours to get that deal done in research. And I also would like to thank Wendy for finding alternative, cheaper financing. And that's it for my comment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if I could, I just want to thank all the city people from the fire department as well as I just want to thank the borough again for their continued support in this matter, and thanks again.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, good. So we have a motion and we have a second, and we have a roll call vote, Mr. Morris, please.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes.
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
And that's the only motion I have tonight. The rest of my report can be read in the agenda. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Thank you, Mr. Erbaldinger.
Thank you.
That concludes our committee reports. Old business, I have an item here under an ISO rating. We were fortunate to be able to get some information for this iOS rating, which is associated with a safety rating of fire suppression in the borough. And because this is not public information, there's no way for you to go anywhere and obtain this information as far as I know. So the only way that you can get access to this is through your own, which we have, of course, and also if somebody makes it public, as Mount Lebanon did. So there are a couple of things. Is Mr. Thielacker, is Jim there?
No, he is not.
Okay. Anyway, I worked with him and spoke with him. We analyzed this information, and so we have a 4 rating, and from what I can gather, a 3 or a 4 rating is basically the average across most communities. But there were a couple of things that stood out, and that was that Mount Lebanon put this on their website as a number 1. And of course, they're going to crow about it, and I guess rightfully so. But when we did a little analysis, the chief and I, we found out that there were a couple of problems in terms of us being able to get a better rating. And the one that really stuck out was associated with the water supply. So there's a total of 40 points that you can get. I believe that's correct. I forgot the information, which I will be giving to the Public Safety Committee so that they can set up a database for it to review. But the one thing that was puzzling had to deal with the water supply and the pressure. And Mount Lebanon, I believe, had like a 39 point something out of 40, and we were down around 28. And to me, I'm saying, well, we got hydrants, we pay for them every year, et cetera, et cetera. When we dug into the information, going through Vivian Brose, who is our representative on the Wilkinsburg Penn Joint Authority, we found out that our system is a gravity-based system, which means wherever you have your top container, water source, wherever that's located, that's going to determine what pressure you're going to get. And since they're not going to change that and put any type of regulators in, that number will never change for us. So we're like at 28, and we're never going to get above that based upon what I have heard. Consequently, we're never going to be able to get to a number 1 because we'll never have that enough points in that particular area. There were a couple other things too that I think we could address, and I spoke with the chief, and one of them was promoting fire safety, fire suppression in the borough. You can get a couple extra points for that, and we discussed things like doing a survey annually with all of our residents and trying to get that out all the time so that we're not waiting for this to occur. It's going to be like it, and I just gave it to him as a suggestion, and he said he would talk to the fire department and see if we could implement something like this. So we could do a survey possibly where we would ask everybody to check to see if they had fire suppression things such as the smoke detectors, the fire extinguishers. I also mentioned looking into that fire blanket as possibly an additional item, and carbon monoxide detectors. These are associated with the fire suppression within the borough with all of the residents. So again, I discussed it with him, and that's where we left it. And I will give that information to the Public Safety Committee so that they can share it and do some comparisons. And that's all I wanted to say with that. That will go to the Public Safety Committee.
Mr. Tomasic, could I add one thing about the water supply?
Yes.
Wilkinsburg Penn Joint does have a program in place to replace water mains throughout their system. In the past, I'd say 5 or so years, we've replaced a long line on Greensburg Pike in 2 phases. Cherry Valley Road, Cascade, 2 sections of Cascade this year. We do replace lines, and every time we replace a line, we replace it usually with a bigger line. Even if it's the same size line, it's still bigger because as water lines get older, they tend to get smaller inside due to what we call barnacles, but they're not really not barnacles. It's the accumulation of scale on the inside of the pipes. So when a new line is put in, the fire flow for that particular street would increase. And over a period of time, that may increase just as a result of the water authority replacing lines throughout the borough.
Okay. All right, well, that's in addition to what I was told, because again, if you have a water tower in a given location and you have the gravity fed system, you're never going to be able to increase that. Now, maybe you could get better pressure out of that piping system, but that's going to remain constant because that water seeking its own level is going to create that pressure.
Yeah, the pressure won't change, but the amount of flow, the gallons per minute could change because of a larger line.
I got you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we don't have anything under new business. So therefore, I would suggest that we adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Please don't rush to the building for the meeting. Marcus is on the road and he anticipates about an 8:15 arrival time. So for that in-person meeting, that's when it will take place, okay? Thank you all, and that concludes the meeting. We're adjourned, Mr. Morris.
Okay, I'm
Thank
stopping
you.
everything.
Good night.